You did everything right. You woke up early, you stayed late, you skipped the trips, the dinners, the things your friends were doing, because you were being responsible, because you were building something. And yet, here you are, checking your balance before you buy groceries, doing the math in your head at the checkout. One unexpected bill away from a month that doesn't work out. And the worst part? You blame yourself. But what if this isn't about you at all? What if the problem isn't how hard you work, but the world you're working inside of? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changed the way I see everything. When we were kids, someone drew us a picture of how life works. You work hard, you study, you get a job, you save your money, and slowly, steadily, you move up. You climb, you reach the good life that's waiting for you at the top. It's a beautiful picture, and the people who drew it for us, our parents, our teachers, our communities, they believed it. They weren't lying to us. They were passing on the only map they had. But here's the thing about that map. It was drawn a long time ago, and the terrain has changed. The ladder is still there. They still tell you to climb it, but nobody mentions that the rungs are getting farther apart. Nobody mentions that the ladder itself costs more every year just to hold on to. And nobody tells you that someone else is in control of where the ladder is leaning. So you climb, and you wonder why you're tired but not higher. Let's talk about something very simple, something that sounds obvious once you hear it, but most people spend their whole lives without anyone ever saying it to them directly. There are two ways to make money in this world. The first way, you trade your time for it. You show up, you work, you get paid. You stop working, the money stops. This is how almost everyone starts, and for most people, it's the only way they ever know. The second way, you own something that earns while you're not watching. A business, a rental property, a piece of a company through stocks. You own it and it quietly generates income whether you're working or sleeping or on vacation. Now, here's the quiet tragedy in all of this. The first way, trading time, is the one school prepares you for. Get good grades, get a job, trade your hours. That's the curriculum. That's the entire curriculum. The second way, almost nobody teaches you that. Not in school, not at home, not in anywhere most people grow up. And so most of us spend our whole lives getting very, very good at the one method that has a ceiling and never even hearing about the one that doesn't. Here's where it gets harder to hear. Over the last 50 years, workers have gotten more productive. We produce more per hour than any generation before us. The economy has grown enormously, but wages, actual take-home pay adjusted for what things cost, have barely moved. Meanwhile, the three things that used to be the foundation of a stable life, a home, an education, and healthcare, have gotten so expensive that for millions of people, they're no longer a given. They're a dream with a price tag attached that keeps going up. You're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. The math genuinely doesn't work the way it used to, and working harder inside a broken equation doesn't fix the equation. It just exhausts you. We also love to believe in meritocracy, the idea that if you're talented enough, disciplined enough, hungry enough, you'll make it. The playing field is level. May the best person win. And there's something true in that. Effort matters. Character matters. Persistence absolutely matters. But imagine two people running a race. One of them starts at the 50-yard line. The other one starts in the parking lot outside the stadium. Both are running as fast as they possibly can. Both are giving everything they have. And someone stands at the finish line saying, "Look how fair this race is. Anyone can win." That's meritocracy when it ignores where people started. Hard work is necessary. It's just not sufficient. And pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. It just makes the person in the parking lot feel like the distance is their fault. Now, let's get into the specific traps, because the system doesn't keep people poor through one big obvious villain. It does it through a series of quiet, compounding mechanisms that most people never see until they're already deep inside them.
The first one is debt. And I want to be careful here because borrowing money isn't evil. Sometimes it's the right move. But the way debt was sold to an entire generation was deeply misleading. Borrow to invest in yourself. Take the student loan, finance the car, put it on the card. It'll all be worth it. What they didn't explain clearly enough is this. When you borrow money, you don't just buy the thing. You buy the thing and then you buy it again, slowly over time through interest. And here's the cruel part. The less money you have, the worse your interest rates. So the people who can least afford to pay extra pay the most extra. The people who most need a break get the worst deal. Low income leads to high interest. High interest means more of your money disappears every month. Less money means less savings. Less savings means you're still low income, and around it goes. That wheel doesn't stop spinning on its own. The second trap is one that sounds harmless until you really sit with it. Inflation. Here's all you need to know. If you put $1,000 in a drawer today and you open that drawer 5 years from now, there's still $1,000 in there. The number hasn't changed, but what that money can buy has shrunk because prices went up. Your money stood still. Saving in cash long term is a slow leak. You don't see it happening, but it's happening. The people who know this, what do they do differently? They put their money in things that grow, things that outpace inflation, investments, assets, things that work while they rest. But here's the wall most people hit. To invest, you need money that isn't already promised to something else. And when your rent is half your paycheck and food and transport and debt payments take the rest, there's nothing left to put to work, nothing left to grow. The system doesn't stop you from building wealth by saying no. It stops you by making sure there's nothing left over. Here's one that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. The money you earn by working, by showing up, and by trading your time is taxed at a higher rate than money earned by simply owning things. If you work for $50,000 this year, the government takes a significant percentage. That's income tax. If you own stocks that grow by $50,000 this year, the government takes a smaller percentage. That's capital gains tax, and it's lower, by design. This isn't a rumor, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's written right there in the tax code, in plain language. It has been that way for decades. And what does that mean in practice? It means the more your wealth comes from working, the higher your tax burden. The more it comes from owning, the lower. The system literally charges more for effort than it charges for ownership. Laws are written by people, and the people who write them tend to own a lot of things. There's something economists call the poverty premium, and once you know about it, you see it everywhere. Being poor is expensive. No credit history? You pay a deposit before you can rent an apartment, sometimes before you can get a phone, sometimes before the electricity gets turned on. No savings for a reliable car? You depend on public transit, or you take out a loan at crushing interest rates, or you pay a mechanic more than the car is worth trying to keep an old one running. No bank account? You use check cashing services. They take a percentage every single time. Need emergency cash right now? Payday lenders will give it to you at interest rates that can exceed 300% annually. The wealthy get preferential rates, early access, discounts for buying in bulk, low interest credit lines for emergencies. The poor pay more for the same things, pay more to borrow, pay more to access their own money, pay more to exist inside the same economy. Poverty isn't just a lack of money, it's an extra tax on everything, charged specifically to the people who can least afford to pay it. And then there's the one that lives inside your own head. We exist in the most sophisticated, most relentless advertising environment in all of human history. Thousands of messages every day, across every screen and surface and moment of silence we try to have. And they are all saying the same thing in 1,000 different voices. Spend, treat yourself, you earned it, you deserve it. Buy now, pay later. Don't wait, life is short, you only live once. This isn't an accident. An economy runs on consumption, and the people who benefit most from that economy have invested heavily in making sure you stay in the role of consumer, not owner, spender, not builder. You were never really taught how money grows. You were taught how to enjoy spending it. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying your life, But there's a difference between conscious spending and spending on autopilot because thousands of experts in human psychology have spent billions of dollars making sure you do exactly that. The system doesn't just create barriers outside of you, it builds them inside of you too. So, what do you actually do with all of this? I'm not going to give you a list of tips. I'm not going to tell you to cut out your coffee. I'm going to give you something more important than that. The first thing, the foundation under everything else, is this: you have to see it. You cannot fight something invisible. You cannot navigate a maze you don't know you're in. The single most powerful shift you can make right now isn't financial, it's perceptual. Most people walk through their financial lives thinking the obstacles they hit are personal failures. I'm bad with money. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not smart enough. I just can't seem to get ahead. But now you know that some of those obstacles have names: debt traps, inflation, regressive tax structures, the poverty premium, the manufactured urgency to consume. That knowledge is not depressing. That knowledge is the first breath of fresh air you've had in years. Because personal failures feel permanent, structural problems have solutions. The second thing is time, specifically using it instead of wasting it. There is a force in finance called compound interest, and it is so powerful, so quietly transformative, that the people who understand it spend the rest of their lives wishing they'd understood it earlier. Here's how it works in its simplest form. You invest $100. It grows 10%. Now you have $110. Next year, that $110 grows 10%. You have $121. You added nothing. The money made money. Then that money made more money. Then that made more.
The longer this runs, the faster it moves. What starts as a trickle becomes a stream, becomes a river. But it needs one thing above everything else: time. And that's the brutal irony. It works best when you're young, and young people have the least money, the least knowledge, and nobody guiding them toward this. So the people who already have wealth use this tool from childhood, and the people building from scratch find out about it later, when some of their most powerful years are already behind them. The best day to start was a decade ago. The second best day is right now. Today. This week. Not when you have more money. Not when life settles down. Now. The third thing is the slowest and the most important. Start moving from the spending column to the owning column. Not dramatically, not overnight, just start. One share of an index fund, a small side project that earns you $50, a savings account that earns interest instead of nothing, a book about investing that you actually finish. It doesn't matter how small. What matters is the direction. Because when you own even a tiny piece of something, something changes in how you see the world. You start noticing the economy differently. You start thinking like someone with a stake in the game, not just someone passing through it. Money, for most people, is a river that flows toward them and then immediately flows away. Bills, rent, food, debt, in and out, in and out. The goal is to build a small dam, to redirect even a trickle of that flow into something that stays, something that grows, something that one day starts flowing back to you even when you're not working. That's the shift, from flowing through to staying and growing. And the last thing, and maybe the most quietly revolutionary, is to learn what the system never bothered to teach you. Financial literacy is not in the curriculum of most schools. That is a choice someone made. An economically educated population asks harder questions, negotiates better deals, borrows less recklessly, and is harder to exploit. That's not in everyone's interest, but it's absolutely yours. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need a special background. You need curiosity and a willingness to spend some of the time you'd otherwise give to a screen, learning instead. Books, podcasts, free courses,
conversations with people who figured pieces of this out. None of it is magic. All of it is learnable by you right now at whatever age you're watching this. So let's come back to where we started. You did everything right. You worked hard. You showed up. You tried. And you're still struggling, not because you failed the system, but because the system was never fully designed with you in mind. The debt traps are real. The wage gap is real. The tax structure, the poverty premium, the machine that turns you into a consumer and keeps you there, all of it is real. But here's what's also real. Once you see the maze, you can start navigating it. Once you name the traps, they lose their grip. Once you understand the rules, even the unfair ones, you can start playing differently. You are not broken. You are not behind because you failed. You were handed a maze and told it was an open field. Now you have a map. The system doesn't change overnight, but you can. And not quietly, slowly, powerfully, changes everything.